In this video, we're going to take a look at hatching and cross-hatching with the graphite pencil. We'll start with very light lines and progressively build up darker values with darker marks. Perhaps when you think of using hatching and cross-hatching in a drawing, you naturally think of using pen and ink. In this demonstration, however, I want to show you how you can use graphite pencils to create gradations in value in a drawing. We'll use two graphite pencils to accomplish this. In this case, I'm starting with a 2H pencil, which has a harder lead inside of it, which makes lighter marks. For this drawing, of course, we'll need to consider the cross contour lines, which are implied lines on most objects that follow the form of the object. We want to create the illusion of form by the placement of the lines that we include in the drawing. Now, understandably, this can be a bit tricky when you're using hatching and cross-hatching, since we're using straight lines. So I'm going to use a series of linear marks to create the illusion of the cross contours, and these should be considered whenever you're doing hatching and cross-hatching with straight lines. Every artist will approach this differently, of course, and it's up to your discretion how you create this illusion. We're going to slowly build up applications of the graphite on the surface to progressively get darker with our values. I'm using a 2H pencil here, as I mentioned earlier, because the marks will be lighter, giving me greater control in those gradations or changes in value. I'm trying to keep my stroke as consistent as possible by creating the same amount of space in between each mark that I make. Because I'm using graphite instead of pen and ink, I can also adjust the amount of pressure that I put on the pencil, which in the end will affect the perceived value of that area. With pen and ink, typically the mark that you make is consistently the same value, so spacing in between marks is a little bit more important than it is here with graphite. Since we can adjust the amount of pressure, it's less relevant. A foot is clearly a complex and organic object, so therefore the cross contour lines will change in different regions. Constantly, you should be evaluating how you apply your hatching and cross-hatching marks to further the illusion of form. Of course, we're also adding hatching and cross-hatching to create a full range of value. Value, of course, is the darkness or lightness of a color. We see the world mostly in a full range of value, meaning we should have the darkest darks and the lightest lights, as well as the grays in between included in our drawing. By adding the hatching and cross-hatching, we have control over the value in our drawing. This will lead to a greater illusion of form, as well as the illusion of a light source in the image. Subtle changes in form and value exist on this particular subject. To help create this subtle contrast, I'll change the direction of the lines in different areas. Portions of the foot, including the toes, extend outward towards the viewer. This is called foreshortening. To help create the illusion of foreshortening, more horizontal lines are used. Less space is used in between these lines to help create this illusion. We'll also need to consider line quality, which is the thickness or thinness of a line. Whenever possible, you can make your lines a bit thicker to help create the illusion of form or shadow. It's okay to curve lines in a few areas, as we can see here with the toe. That again will help create the illusion of form. We'll change the direction of the lines based on the form of the foot, like we've done everywhere else in this drawing. In this case, the fourth toe that we draw here is bent inward a bit, so the lines are a bit more diagonal. We'll create a bit of cast shadow underneath the foot, since this is a cast sculpture that we're drawing. Now it's time to move on to our second pencil. In this case, I'm using an HB pencil as the darker pencil. An HB pencil is equivalent to a standard number 2 pencil. I'm choosing to use an HB pencil because it is softer than the number 2 pencil, which means it will produce darker marks, but it is still harder than, say, a 4B or a 6B pencil. Because a 4B or 6B pencil is softer, it will become duller in a shorter amount of time. And because we're working with lines, doing the hatching and cross-hatching, we want the tip of the pencil to stay as sharp as possible. An alternative to using a traditional pencil like I am is using a mechanical pencil whose tip will stay sharp as long as there's lead in the pencil. As you work, consider that light picks up on objects that protrude, and areas that recede typically have less light associated with them. Therefore, areas that protrude are generally going to be lighter in value, while areas that recede will be darker in value. Where the ankle protrudes out, we can see that it's lighter in value, but just underneath it becomes darker in value. Using the HB pencil, we can define the contour line a bit further, adding more pressure and enhancing the line quality. We'll also continue to make some of the values around the toes a bit darker. We can define areas of cast shadow, as well as core shadow. Each bit of shadow that we include furthers the illusion of form and the light source. As you add darker values with the softer graphite, be careful not to overpower the midtones or middle values and the light values that are necessary for a full range. The front edge of the foot does bend downward a bit, and some of the light is prohibited from getting into this area. So some of the values on the front bottom portion of the foot, right before the toes, are a bit darker. We'll also darken up some of the cast shadow that happens underneath the toes and the foot, as the foot itself rests upon the cast support. Very loosely and quickly, I'll define the support that the cast sculpture is sitting upon. We'll use a few hatching marks to indicate a bit of shadow, and we'll do the same on the front and side edge of the cast support. And now our sketch using hatching and cross-hatching with graphite is complete. If you enjoyed this video and you're ready to learn more, why not check out 4 video courses, live instruction, and over 6,000 minutes of art instruction, which include ebooks, live lessons, lesson plans, and more. Just click on the button to learn more now.